the pineapple is the most political fruit that has ever existed. Hey people, welcome back to Veronica Explains, insert thing here. Today I'm going to be explaining imperialism from the United States in the late 1800s to early 1900s. And so if you're following along with me from class, this is chapter 21, and yet again, as always, we have a test tomorrow. And I have decided to grace you all with this video. Hopefully it goes up earlier than it did last time we had a test, because it didn't go up until like 10 o'clock at night, and I felt really bad about it because some of my friends were waiting for it. But yeah, let's go. Imperialism. So it all kind of started with Turner and his frontier thesis back in the day. Remember when, like, it happened a while ago. Like, Turner and his little frontier thesis happened a little bit ago. But we're gonna flash back to that for a second, because that kind of explains, like, the whole, like, basis of this mentality that we're going to be talking about. And I'm not over by my whiteboard today just because it's a lot of work to go and move my chair over there, and the lighting was really doing it for me over here. So we're going to stay here. Anyway, so basically the frontier thesis is that the most American part of America, like, is that it's America. Like, expanding the frontier and having a frontier is just the core of America, right? Okay. So the 1890 census happens, and they're like, oh shit, there's no frontier anymore. And they kind of are freaking out, because now what is America now? Because there's no frontier, so what do we do? Like, there's no more land, we took it all. There's no frontier anymore, so what do we do with ourselves? We've stolen all of the land possible from the Native Americans. What are we going to do now? And so people were like, hey, you know how, like, the West is done? You know how there are islands nearby? Let's go there. Also, my cat is in the background. Lola's there. I think she's leaving because she's fed up with me talking. They're like, let's go. They're like, let's go after these islands, and let's make them colonies, because that's a good idea. So basically, they wanted these islands as, like, territories for, like, naval bases and stuff, because people were like, hey, you know, our Navy isn't the best, and if we do use our Navy for something, let's have them go somewhere. So they wanted, like, naval bases and, like, trading outposts with Asia and stuff, because a lot of these islands, like Hawaii, Guam, Wake Islands, like the Midway Islands, they're really conveniently placed right there in the middle of, like, these landmass continents. There are a lot of internal issues about this, because everyone keeps going like, hey, like, George Washington said not to do foreign entanglements, and what are we doing? Foreign entanglements. Remember what George said about those foreign entanglements? And then a lot of people in the country were like, nah, like, we can do what we want. A lot of people were like, no, we can do what we want. They were like, what are we going to do? Because George said not to get into foreign entanglements, and now we're getting into foreign entanglements yet again. And so basically, like, they were like, well, you know, like, we have stuff like the telegraph and, like, that transatlantic cable. Like, we have ways of communicating now, so we're not cut off from everybody. And so basically, internationalism began to replace nationalism. So, like, remember when nationalism, like, is a really strong feeling towards your own country and not really caring about, like, anyone else. But, like, internationalism now is trying to, like, take over. They're like, you know, we're interested in foreign things. And so this is going to lead to imperialism. And that is imposing control, like this is the official definition, imposing control over people through annexation, military conquest, or economic domination. We're not really at imperialism yet, but we will be. So, the reasons for expansion included to gain markets, like because they wanted to expand like the US business and US economy and stuff like that. Missionary spirit, because we are currently in the time where some Protestant missionaries were like, let's go and convert people because clearly they don't know anything and clearly we need to help them. So there's that. And so this guy named Josiah Strong is telling us that like we're more advanced than other countries. Honestly, you still see this kind of thing today. Not to like connect it to like life events right now, but like you kind of see stuff like this still today. Like sentiments like these that like we're more like advanced and we're more special and we're just better. But in reality, in the 1870s, like we had just started like disinfecting our surgical supplies like a few minutes ago. Like we're really not that much better than anyone else, but we were being pretty disillusioned by that idea. And that's probably eventually how we're going to lead to like the disillusionment of the American dream in the 1920s, but we're not there yet. So that's what the entire Great Gatsby is about, but we're not there yet. So foreign policy. So expansionists were people who like obviously wanted America to expand itself like outside of its current borders. So like it wanted to go, like they wanted to go to like the islands, like they wanted to do that kind of thing. And so we got some places. We got Alaska from Russia, and it was called Seward's Folly because they all thought it was really stupid to go buy Alaska, but Seward was like, no guys, trust me, this is a good idea. And everyone was like, no, it's not. Like, you're such a loser. But they changed their minds pretty quickly after they found gold and oil in Alaska. So, they were like pretty quick, oh, never mind, he was actually kind of smart. I'm also going to do my eyebrows. Like, I'm really sorry. This is really random. Like, I feel like I can't just have like the lipstick and then have my eyebrows be like nothing, you know? But anyways, I'm still going to be talking about history. I mean, I'm going somewhere today, so, you know, it's fine. So, our goal is to erode the European influence in Latin America, mainly Spain. We hate Spain right now for some reason. Like, the Maine hasn't even, like, exploded yet, and we already hate Spain. Just because of how close in contact they are, like how close their lands are in relation to ours, like they're pretty freaking close. We're like, you know, buddy, Spain, like we really don't want you there anymore. And Spain is like, you're funny, and like they're not. Like Spain obviously isn't going to make any moves to leave because they've had this land for you know, for like a hot minute. So, you know, anyway. So basically what happened first was the America diverted Latin American trade away from Europe through like a bunch of treaties. Like they were like, you know what? Like sign this, and like low key England isn't like low key. Europe is going to be like a little screwed over by this, but you know, it's fine. Like that's what we want. Like ignore them basically. Like just trade with us. They supported Venezuela against Great Britain because Venezuela was like, yo, we want independence like right now. And Britain was like, no. But the Venezuelans were like, you know what? Maybe we will get that freedom because the United States started backing them against Great Britain. So, you know, once again, we were being Great Britain's like bane of their existence once more. Because we love doing that. We love being that, you know? Just like the bane of Britain's existence. floor. I'm like, where did this go? Anyway, so Seward, still getting roasted for buying Alaska because they didn't find that gold yet, but they will eventually. Some guy, I forgot his full name because my teacher spoke too fast, but I'm pretty sure his last name is Fish. He was like, let's make sure we snatch all of these territories away from Europe because we don't want them anywhere near us anymore. Like, we're sick of them. Like, we're sick of them being here and existing. And so we're like, let's help Latin America with their little freedom revolution things, and then we snatch them. And Hawaii basically was one of those places, except not real. It wasn't under like Spain or anything, but we snatched Hawaii pretty badly, and we screwed them over pretty much. Like, in a nutshell, we were really, really rude to Hawaii, because frickin' the guy who created the Dole company, you know what I'm talking about, like the fruit. He was like, yeah, we'll use this land. And the native Hawaiians were like, actually, like, we kind of have our own government and our own way of life and everything, but Dole and his little Protestant missionary friends were like, no, you guys are like basically primitive and we should help you. And then the native Hawaiians are like, we actually like don't want any help, you know? But they were like, no, yes you do, like of course you do. And so basically we took them over pretty harshly. I mean, their queen even tried like being like, hey, let's not, but like we didn't, like the United States obviously did not listen, and we were like, you know what, we're gonna take you over anyway. And that was kind of like a really like unfortunate thing to happen, just, you know, because Dole was a hoe. Like, Hawaii originally wasn't going to be annexed into the United States, but, you know, Dole didn't want to pay those tariffs on his stupid little canned fruit. So, you know, that's how that happened. So that's why pineapples are considered to be like the most like politically charged fruit in existence. Anyway, so Alfred Mahan, he was like, overseas markets are essential for industrial surpluses, but we need a navy for that. Like, he was like, basically, in order for any of this to work, we need a navy. And like, it's not like we don't have a navy at this point in time, because we do. They just really suck. Like, they don't really do anything, like, in comparison to like Britain or Spain's navy. Like, our navy is not great, like, at all. And so the young officers who are currently in the Navy, they're like, guys, like, we need a stronger Navy. Like, everyone has one these days, so like, we need a stronger Navy. And so it's basically a we need colonies conversation. And anyway, war with Spain. So in 1901, Mahan becomes the military advisor to McKinley. You know what? I'm going to move my laptop like over here. I don't know why I didn't do that before. So he becomes the military advisor to McKinley, and he's like really wanting that better Navy, because in order to have like an industrial surplus, we need a good Navy. And so America was like, all right, you know what? Spain is really in our way. I mean, and it's technically true, like they very much are in our way of collecting more, you know, locations and stuff like that. Like, they really were like kind of in our way. And so everyone was like, Spain, that didn't make any sense. So Cuba, hey, Cuba is going through it because, we want independence from Spain, and America sees this and they're like, they're like, Cuba wants independence from Spain, and so many atrocities are happening over in Cuba. Let's help them out. Let's do it for them. Let's help them. So America was like, we're going to publish a lot of things in our newspapers. And those things were yellow journalism. Now, yellow journalism is just basically a lot of sensationalized stories. Like, a lot of sensationalized stories. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it would be stuff like, how clickbait is today? Like, you know how clickbait works. It's basically newspaper clickbait. And so it wasn't the main reason why the United States decided to, like, do war on Spain, but it persuaded a lot of people that, like, oh, maybe war on Spain is a good idea because of all of these things that are happening. So the USS Maine, which was a ship belonging to the, United States, hence USS, they were like, all right, we're here to quell some arguments between Spain and Cuba. Like, they went to go help initially, and then it blew up. And that was really, like, frosty of me to say, but then it blew up. And America was like, we're fighting because obviously it was Spain. Obviously, it was Spain who blew up our ship. How else would it have blown up? And they're forgetting that this is like the 1890s and their ships, it's 1901 actually, and their ships aren't the most advanced things ever, but whatever. And then the Cuban people are out here just like, like America, okay. Anyway, so the Philippines, our oppression buddies, were like, hey, everyone else is gaining independence. Why not us too? Let's join the party. And so they were like, it sucks here. We want independence. And Spain is probably feeling really, like, attacked right now. But, like, I mean, as they should. Anyway, Teddy Roosevelt is like, all right, nerds. All right, fellow jocks. Let's go fight. And he creates, like, this team called the Rough Riders. And basically they're frat boys going to war. That's all you need to know. And so the U.S. was like, all right, let's fight. They took San Juan. They were like, I said that really, like, badly. But San Juan, they were like, let's go. Snatch. And then they, like, left to go to Puerto Rico without, like, staying to help suit too much. Like, the war was basically over in, like, 2 minutes. It was really, like, a short conflict in comparison to other ones. Well, for America, it was a short conflict. And it was, the splendid little war for people who weren't native Cubans and for people who were just, like, chilling in America with their little newspapers, reading about the daily drama. And there was a peace treaty at some point. I'll get into that later. And then April 19th, 1898, Congress is like, Cuba's independent now, but there are rules, and those rules are called the Platt Amendment. And basically, they're like, Cuba can't do anything unless we say that it's okay, which is still, like, in effect today. Like, it hasn't gone away magically. So basically, Cuba would not, I looked like a ghost just then. Cuba would not be annexed into the United States, but they were like, you can't make any treaties, you can't do anything with other countries, you can't get involved with other countries unless we say it's okay, basically. And then, yeah, anyway, so the African American soldiers who were in like the US Navy during the Spanish American War were treated like garbage. And the plan basically during the Spanish American War was to destroy the Spanish fleet, destroy their stuff, and steal their colonies, and we're going to look cool while we do it. Because while we're not a global superpower yet, we really want to be a global superpower. You know? So, December 1898 was the Treaty of Paris, which is that peace treaty that I mentioned before. And basically Cuba is independent, and the US acquired Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. And so the big question now is, what do we do with the Philippines? Because what do we do with this large nation? And so basically William McKinley was like stressing out. And so basically there was this little debate over it. And they were like, you know what? Do we become an aggressive colonizer? Do we become aggressive? Do we become an imperialistic nation? The answer is yes. And so the Anti-Imperialist League, meanwhile, wants that answer to be no. They're like, no big armies, no government, no big like government involvement, no debt, no imperialism, but like a lot of racism and nativism though. So anyway, February 1899, the ratification of a peace treaty made the U.S. a colonizing nation. And everyone and their grandma, though, in the common people were like, let's not be a colonizing nation. And the United States government was like, sorry, didn't hear that. Guess we have to become an imperialistic nation. Anyway, so from 1898 to 1901, Emilio Aguinaldo led the Philippine independence movement. And there are some guerrilla war tactics going on over there. And the United States is like, you know what's a good idea? Let's do exactly what the Spaniards did to Cuba. And so in 1901, the United States replaced military rule in the Philippines with civil rule. So, you know, no standing soldiers are there anymore. Local self-government was also permitted, and there was a schedule established for independence, but that independence didn't happen until 1946 after World War II. So clearly we took 2 world wars to get there, basically. A lot of sketchy things, including torture, helped America win that little shenanigan. There's a commission called the Taft Commission, and they're like, wow, we are going to build roads and schools and taxes and stuff in the Philippines. And so the Supreme Court permitted the selective application of the Constitution in U.S. territories, which basically means if you live in a current U.S. territory, like at the time Hawaii or Puerto Rico or Alaska at the time, you had like probably no rights as a person because they were like, you know, selective use of the Constitution, so you basically weren't considered an actual citizen. So the Navy controlled Guam during this time. So basically another one of the big questions is, does the Constitution follow the flag? So basically, like, if we colonize somewhere, does the Constitution apply to that area? And every single time the answer is no. So no, they're just going to be super selective about the Constitution for everywhere else. The Foraker Act is Puerto Rico gets some stuff. They get some stuff. I don't remember what they get, but they get some stuff. But they don't get citizenship until near the end of World War I. So that's like I want to say near like the 19 teens, you know, like after 1910. I don't know when, I don't have like an accurate timeline of when World War I starts, but I know it's before 1920. So, okay. Cuba was like, all right, here's our constitution, get out, like to the United States. They were like, leave. But the Plot Amendment was like, actually, no. Okay, so the full thing of the Plot Amendment that I mentioned earlier was Cuba can't make treaties, they can't acquire debt, they basically cannot go outside unless the United States says it's okay. In 1902, the military finally leaves Cuba, except in Guantanamo Bay, which is still an active torture establishment, basically. So we're gonna move on to China. This is like literally the most disorganized video I've ever made. I'm just reading off of my notes, pretty much. Anyway, so an open door policy with China is what we really wanted. Basically, that's like, all right, I have to give you a little context first. So China basically was like, you know, we're not gonna deal with the rest of the world because that's a lot of things we don't want to do. Not to mention China kept like breaking apart and then reforming itself and then breaking apart and reforming itself anyway. So really, they didn't have a lot of time to be messing around with foreign nations, to be completely honest with you, probably. So they were like, you know what, let's just make our cool silk, let's just chill out and not deal with foreign nations, until basically the Jaws theme is playing in the background, and it's all of the global superpowers plus the United States, because we aren't a global superpower yet. And we're like, hey, China. And China's like, hey. And we're like spheres of influence, which is basically like little areas, like little ports and stuff like that, where they could influence the people. Like, oh, like, here's American culture, or like here's Spanish culture, or like here's British culture. And honestly, was that really necessary? No. But anyways, so basically the whole line of thinking for the open door policy was, if the door is open, why not walk in? And I'm like, I mean, preferably you were invited first, but that didn't happen. So the Boxer Rebellion happens in June of 1900, and it's these super nationalist Chinese guys who are like, we don't like these spheres of influence, and so they fight about it. And honestly, were they wrong though? Like, were they really wrong? No. The open door notes happened because they were like, you know, we need to preserve their independence, but we want to trade there, as if we're going to be able to take over all of China. But anyways, the purpose of the entire open door thing, along with the purpose of the entirety of what I was just talking about, was to make money. Teddy Roosevelt, after all of this, was a war hero, which basically catapulted him to be president. This entire war, this entire shenanigan, sets back civil rights for Black people because everyone's so focused on this war that no one is listening. The Republicans were the majority party at the end of this. The U.S. soldiers were permanently stationed outside of the country for the first time after this, which makes life more expensive for the ordinary citizen, because how do we pay for the military? Through taxes. And it's literally glory, God in gold. That's all you need to know. This lighting, really. Okay. So yeah, that's imperialism and how we basically ruined the lives of like a lot of people. Sweet.